Hello and a very good day. We are from Group 9 are going to present for experiment 10, which is pressure drop in packed bed reactor. In this experiment, we have two objectives, which are to determine the pressure and height variation with flow rate for air system and also to verify the friction factor for air system. For the theory part, we are going to use Ergen equation as you can see in the screen. This Ergen equation basically expresses the friction factor as the function of modified Reynolds number. For chapter 2 methodology, this one is the experiment setup. We only use for airflow system as the fluid flow is not working. So for this one is actually the acyclic pellet and the next one is the ceramic sphere pellet. So move on to the procedure. First, we fill the ceramic sphere into the tube until 50 mm and then we switch on the main power supply. After that, we switch on the pump by turning the knob on top left corner of the panel. And the fourth step is we control valve below digital flow meter to adjust the flow rate from 50 to 250 with an increment of 50 liter per minute. For next step, we record all the pressure reading from digital manometer and we repeat step 4 and 5 with an increment of bed height 200 and 150. And next, we record the data in table for every 3 reading of the experiment. And the last one is this experiment was repeated through the same procedure 1 to 6 by using acyclic pellet as the packet bed. So for experiment 10D, which is the verification of friction factor for air system, this experiment will use the same procedure for the experiment D. So we don't need to do the experiment, but the objective of this experiment is to verify the friction factor of the packet bed system based on equation provided in the lab manual, to plot the Reynolds number versus friction factor based on equation even, and also to determine the frictional loss in the air system.
Results and discussion of experiment 10B, we were required to calculate the fluid superficial velocity based on the formula stated in appendix. Tables of readings and calculated values for both ceramic sphere and acrylic pellet are stated here in table 1 and table 2. Using these values, we plot graphs of pressure difference and height variation of the packed bed versus superficial velocity for both ceramic sphere and acrylic pellets, which can be seen in both figure 1 and figure 2. So both this figure 1 and figure 2 shows that the pressure drop of fluid is relatively proportional to the fluid superficial velocity. Also, when the height of bed increases, the gradient of graph increases, proving that the pressure difference recorded also increases. Hence, from both these graphs, it is clear that the pressure difference is directly proportional to the fluid superficial velocity. Comparing both these graphs, the bed does not change its behavior as higher the height of the bed, the more the pressure drops and higher the superficial velocity. Figure 1 and Figure 2 shows that ceramic sphere as bed produce a lower pressure drop compared to acrylic pellet. This is because ceramic sphere have higher porosity compared to acrylic pellets.
Okay, next is experiment 10D, which is the verification of the friction factor for the air system. Okay, using the same values that you get from experiment 10B, we can calculate the friction factor and frictional loss. Okay, for the friction factor, we can calculate using equation 7 or 9, equation 11, equation 19, equation 20, and equation 21 for both ceramic sphere and acrylic pellets. Okay, you can see the trend from this table. The friction factor is decreasing when the volumetric flow rate is increasing, and the frictional loss is increasing as the volumetric flow rate is increasing. Same for both ceramic sphere and acrylic pellets. Okay, you can see from this graph, from the value that we get from our calculation, we can plot friction factor versus RE, and as you can see, the trends actually follows Moody graph for both ceramic sphere and acrylic pellets.
Concluding our presentation of our lab experiment 10, from the results obtained, it can be concluded that as the Reynolds number increases, the friction factor decreases. Furthermore, from the results taken for the friction loss, it can be also concluded that the friction factor increases, the friction loss lessen, proving that the friction factor is inversely proportional to the friction loss. Thank you.